Hello, thank you for tuning into HDR Radio again. We are here to discuss Harry Potter. I am your co-host Matt Muggletain, most likely to break my neck during a game of Quidditch, and joining me, as ever, is my co-host Reba.
Hi, I'm Reba Mac and Cheese. I am a Harry Potter scholar of yore. I'm here to guide the babe in the woods, Matt Muggleteen, into the wonderful wizarding world for the first time. British man who is reading Harry Potter for the first time.
If you're joining us now, it's great to see you. Please do listen to this episode, but you might want to start from the first one, as we are currently on chapter 11 through 13 of Philosopher's Stone.
The context is good, though the audio quality is considerably worse.
Yeah.
We had some spotty audio. I think we've mostly fixed it now. Our audio is not amazing, but it is not garbage. But we had good insight that made up for our garbage audio at the beginning. So.
I mean, here in the wizarding world, we've only got Zooms recently. We're way behind.
We've only recently developed the audio magically, and it's done with a small fairy that we keep trapped in a cage that does our audio for us. And we had forgotten to feed the fairy for a little while. It was a new fairy, didn't like us very much, but now we've gaslit and gatekept him. So now he'll do what he's told.
Yeah, I mean, in the human world, you could just do this with a microphone. This world's a nightmare full with unimaginable cruelty. Anyways.
Yes.
So, Reba, do you want to catch us up?
All right, so where we are right now, today we're going to be covering 3 chapters, and I think I might be wrong, but I think I said this incorrectly last time because I forgot that the Quidditch chapter existed. I just skipped over it mentally to the Mirror of Erised. But no, we're covering Quidditch, Mirror of Erised, and then Nicholas Flamel. Uh-huh. And where we are, what takes us to this moment, we are in the thick of the plot of Sorcerer's Stone. One Hermione Granger has joined the party. You have gained 1 Hermione Granger. Harry. Yup. And she's an asset to the team. This is gonna be our HM slave. But you need her. And yeah, so and Harry is the world's most specialist boy at Quidditch specifically. No other things, but at Quidditch specifically, he is the specialist boy who ever lived. And we are getting a lot of Quidditch in these chapters, so I hope you like Quidditch. And we are now in the thick of the mystery of the story, which we already know. I know it because I've read these things before, and Matt knows it because he watched the movie way back when. So we're all spoiled on this mystery. So we unfortunately can't have the experience of reading it without knowing the plot twists and all of that, which I think is rather unfortunate because it is a weird mystery that we got going on here for what is revealed when, and then the way that it is. So there's a thing being guarded by a 3-headed dog, and then a troll has been let into the castle, and because our protagonists are 11, their pursuit of these mysteries is very haphazard and kind of a bit all over the place. But yeah, there's something's being guarded by a 3-headed dog. Somebody, possibly Snape, wants it, and odd things are going on at Hogwarts. We got some mysteries a cooking. We've got some things a brewing, and we have a Hermione Granger who is now our best friend.
Yeah, so these chapters are fairly plot light, but we start off with Quidditch, and it's wintertime at Hogwarts. Halloween's been and gone. Pretty appropriately for the time of year we're recording this, it's getting cold, especially it's a Scottish winter too, so it's a real bitter one.
Oh, yeah. They do not... I kind of appreciate how this world is allowed to be kind of bleak, and not when you're thinking like, oh, we're going to the wonderful, beautiful wizarding world of early winter in Scotland, and the lake looks like iron, and it's cold in the hall. Like, can't they like magic it so that it's warm inside the castle or something? Or maybe that's just like, no, we want you to suffer. This is part of growing up, is that you suffer through the Scottish winter.
Now make sure to take your magical vitamin D pills.
Yes. Yeah. I hope they have some magical like clementines or something up there so nobody gets scurvy. But yeah.
And because it's, the coldest time of the year, the ground's nice and firm, nice and icy, it's Quidditch season. Because Hogwarts is a hell school that wants to ensure the most injury possible to students.
Yes. They don't even have... There's no net. There's no... This happens in a later book when somebody falls and they are caught with magic. But as of right now, you have no evidence that if anybody falls, they will be caught. There's any type of like security in place for this. There's any kind of safety whatsoever. Hogwarts is just like, no, we play the sport where if you fall, you die.
I'm guessing maybe they used to play during the summer, but there was kind of an Icarus situation with someone's broom catching fire.
Oh, maybe that might make sense. I don't know.
But yeah, Harry's really pumped because he's playing his first official game. He's just been training up until now, and he mentions offhandedly there's several hundred ways to get fouled at a game of Quidditch, and in a game in 1473, every single one was used. I have to imagine that was just an obscene body count from that game.
So that book that he mentions, Quidditch for the Ages, has actually been de-fictionalized at this point, or it's one of those extra things that was made. So if you want to read Quidditch Through the Ages, you now can, or a version of it. It's a lot thinner a book than you would expect from what he's describing. And in my head, I like to think the thing that Rowling actually published and said, "This is Quidditch for the Ages. Buy it, and the money will go to a charity." That's like the Muggle version, like sliced, thinned up a bit, just sort of be like a thing for people. Like, I'm sure the actual version in universe is more like a proper tome of all the Quidditch.
Yeah, and I mean with what I know of sporting regulations with boxing, the rules include stuff like you would get a penalty if you brought a weapon to the ring, or that sort of thing. So it really does get the mind going about what happened in 1473.
Yes, I can't remember the details of it. Why it was the way that it was. Oh, I think it was because it was it was the first Quidditch game ever played, and that's why. That's why everything, because they were just discovering all the ways that people could foul people. Right.
And then of course you got the refs getting sent to the Sahara Desert. So I presume the implication is they just died.
Possibly. I mean, they may have magicked their way out of that somehow. But
and the thing is, I'm not exactly being pedantic here. The books are pretty... One of the things I found funny is the books are pretty honest about, people die playing this sport. What of it?
Yeah, it is... it doesn't really count as a sin of any kind. The wizarding world is hazardous, it's dangerous, people die. And the wizarding world's just yeah, that's the idea.
And the kids are... So, basically, with Harry being swamped with his work and balancing his work and his Quidditch life, Hermione has been helping him out, pretty much doing his homework for him, from the way it's described unintentionally.
More or less, yeah. She becomes that friend in the friend group.
Already in these chapters, we're seeing that Hermione is leagues ahead of these two as a wizard. They really need to knuckle down. They're going to be lagging behind something fierce.
Yeah, especially Ron, because he doesn't have a thing yet. Aside from he plays chess, but Harry's isn't anything fantastic at school, but he's he can fly a broom, which Hermione can't do. And Ron is just kind of I'm also here. This is, I guess, kind of the beginning of Ron's also here.
To be fair, it's like it's like at this point in the book, Rowling kind of realized that Ron doesn't have a thing, and so every fucking scene he's playing chess.
Yeah, and it's not something that like okay, so like the whole Ron and chess thing. This is something that has been like this has been a thing for years. Well, I don't know. I guess for me, I don't know how much other people think about Ron and chess, but I think about it because it's like a key character trait that he has, that he's good at it, and they're not. And like the Ron being good at chess, I forget. I don't know if it ever quite goes away entirely, but as we know, like it's very relevant for this book. It gives him a thing to do in the climax. Like yeah, like this is not spoil. Like everyone, like you've seen the movie. You remember Ron and chess.
I do recall that scene. Yeah.
Right, and after this book, Ron, it's never relevant again. It is never relevant again, and it's kind of just this forgotten skill. And it's like, okay, even if you would, even like, there's no reason to have chess come up again. Like you can't. There's no transferable skills there. There's nothing about chess that could be applied to other arenas that he's good at. Like, is it like a strategy thing that he's good at chess? Is it like he's very intuitive with other people and that's why he can beat them? It seemed to be that he has like a very good relationship with the chess pieces because they were handed down to him. Is part of why he's able to beat Harry, because Harry has to use secondhand chess pieces. And the way wizard chess works is it's kind of it's like about having good people skills and knowing how to listen to the pieces and how to direct the pieces. It's about like kind of being a good leader in some ways. And that, I don't know, like I feel like there's a lot that could tell you about the character of Ron and what stuff he possesses. And maybe even stuff like what makes him a good Gryffindor, or what stuff he would be good at doing like later on when stuff in the plot gets more intense, like in later books when things are getting more intense with what's going on in the world. What could Ron and his skills contribute to that? And yeah, it's kind of never a thing. And I don't know, maybe one of the more serious writing missteps of the series is like losing track of what the purpose of Ron is, because that is a thing where people will be like, I've read fics that don't understand what the purpose of Ron is, and I'm very critical of those people, because like no, he is, like in this chapter especially, like when we get into it, he shows his stripes as like he is a very good friend, and that is a very important thing. But I understand sort of the like, well, what's the point, what is the point of Ron question? Because he could have had more of a point. You gave him chess, and then you just kind of forget about it. So yeah. Anyhow, that's my Ron and chess rant.
Ron's very much like that mode of British guy, you know, if you're a bit nerdier, of like the dude who's really into Warhammer.
Oh!
And he takes it that one step beyond. He actually plays the game. He doesn't just paint the little figurines.
Oh, that is a whole other way to view this that I had not thought about. Okay, talk about this, because I'm not nerdy, or I am very nerdy. I don't. I'm not Warhammer nerdy. I don't war game like that. Talk about. Is that what the comparison here? Like that's what this is like?
I might be outing myself as like a huge fucking dork here, but like, yeah, there's very much a big culture in the UK, especially in like nerd culture of Warhammer and like similar I don't know what, like war miniature games as opposed to just like board games or card games. So like whenever I used to go to geek shops, and it was even like a specific like brand Games Workshop, you will see like these huge tables with massive, really complicated dioramas and maps for playing setup. It's like very much a thing, and I'm not sure it is so much in other places.
I mean, like, I know friends who do like online gaming and stuff. It's not really my world, so I can't really say like if that's more or less of a thing here. I think that it is like among a certain crowd. It would be it is a thing.
Yeah.
But okay, that is that completely never occurred to me that this was like that's what the like he's a kid playing Warhammer is Ron playing wizard chess.
Yeah, like, I'm not sure. I can't say for sure if Rowling really knows much about it, but it's definitely in terms of, like, the way wizard chess is described, and it's treated more like a war game than normal chess. I think that's kind of something that culturally you don't see as much with chess. Um, you know, the
Yeah.
idea of, like, he's commanding and he's got his own personalized set, to me feels like more reminiscent of these, like, really complicated, very dorky war games.
Oh, and I would bet like it's wizard chess, which means it's chaos chess. I assume in some ways. Like I
Hmm.
wonder if there's version of this that are more like you know like you know the people have done all kinds of crazy things with actual chess. Like oh you can do like your 4-dimensional chess, like literal 4-dimensional chess or whatever. And I
Yeah,
wonder
yeah.
if there's versions of wizard chess at higher levels that are like that. That are more, you know, with all kinds of crazy things. Uh, and yeah, so that no, this is I don't know if this makes a huge difference, but that is just like an angle on this that I never thought of. For how to sort of think of that. And so does that fit with Ron's character with like what
Ron,
from what you've seen of it?
yeah, Ron kind of gives me that vibe. Um, just there's a particular kind of guy, and he's not so much the computer nerd that you imagine. He's his own special kind of nerd. He plays war games.
Yes. Yeah. Interesting.
Uh,
Okay, we gotta move on from this because this is we're barely out of like the first paragraph I think, but that's like no this has been a good digression because this is news to me. But
yeah,
yeah,
I'm okay doing some digressions this chapter because again, not a whole lot happens. But yeah, the crew are hanging out in the schoolyard, and they notice that Snape is walking with like a bit of a limp, and is just generally in a bad mood. He comes over, like, just is mean, takes Harry's book for no real reason, and that evening, Harry decides to try and go to confront Snape in the staff room and ask for the book back with some witnesses. But what he encounters is Filch and Snape on their own, with Filch tending to Snape's leg, which has been, like, fucked up something fierce. And Snape
mm-hmm,
is talking about, like, the three-headed dog
mm-hmm.
that was guarding the trapdoor. So Harry gets screamed at. You know, Snape's like, "Get out!
Get the fuck out of here!
Get out!" And Harry goes back and, like, he is now convinced that Snape is the one who is trying to break into that trapdoor, and he also set the troll on people. He's behind it all. Snape's behind it all. He's the villain.
Yes,
He's the baddie.
yes, we found him. The fact that he is coincidentally like colored red and has gills is not not relevant here.
But yeah, like, I like the implication that you start getting through this chapter through scenes like this that Filch and Snape are just pals.
Yes, yeah, okay. I that is something that I've never quite thought about, like reading the books, never focused on. But it is very I'm gonna keep tabs on it from now on that Snape and Filch are friends. And I don't know what that says about either of them, but it's I don't know, Snape has a friend, Filch has a friend. They're both very like bitter, unpleasant weirdos, at least from Harry's point of view. And so there's
Hmm.
something like almost there's something nice about them having this kind of alliance together.
Yeah, they have, like, a support group for teachers that no one likes.
Yes, or people at the school that no one likes, the thankless people at the school.
And so with this in mind, like, Harry starts being pretty nervous about his Quidditch game. He isn't sleeping properly, he isn't eating the next morning, and as Seamus Finnegan is quick to point out, you better be careful or he could get nobbled. Is that like a Harry Potter thing?
Nobbled.
Nobbled.
You this is I feel like it's like we both turn to each other like you're like is this a Harry Potter thing? I'm like is this a British thing? Because I just assumed that was one of many whimsical British turns of phrases, and I never questioned that.
I mean, the word knob, not spelt like that, admittedly, like means...
I know what that is. Yes, I know that. I don't think that's...
But that doesn't mean anything. Like, I don't...
I wonder...
What would being
okay,
knobbed mean?
Okay, okay, here we go. Maybe this is something, because I know the books had to be cleaned up a bit when they were edited by someone who wasn't Rowling. When Rowling first wrote them, they were actually a lot... okay, I'm saying this. This might be... a thing that's like floating around in the ether. I forget where exactly I learned this, so I maybe take this with a grain of salt. But I feel like I learned somewhere that that when the books were first written, they were a lot like Ron swore a lot more, or a lot more.
Ron said the C word.
I don't think it went that far, but I think it was like he
Release
said
the Australian Ron version.
like there's certain, I forget what it is, but there are British words that are like, I don't know, there's like Ron swore a lot more. They sounded a lot more like, I don't know, like the Stranger Things kids than the kind of sanitized version of children that we get here.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
I wonder if nobbled is a substitution, like a nonsense substitution for something else that Seamus said. But yeah, so Quidditch pitch, Quidditch match, first Quidditch match of the thing, and yeah, so in that
we get like a pre-match hype-up speech. Okay, men and women, it's time we get out there and score goals to win the game, sort of deal. We have like color commentary from Lee Jordan, which does feel like pretty accurate to actual English football commentating, even down to just the horrendous bias he's showing.
Yes.
I did find it amusing that they really get into like... So at one point Harry gets fouled at trying to go for the snitch by the captain of the Slytherin team. He gets like body checked. He got knocked over. And to be honest, this feels really like true to football, because this seems like a pretty standard if kind of dirty play to make, and everyone in Gryffindor treats it like he just tried to fucking murder Harry in cold blood.
I mean, to be fair, if you fall off your broom in Quidditch, we have no evidence yet that is not the case.
But yeah, like that did feel well observed, that just the slightest bit of like dirty play is like he should be fucking hung.
Yes. Yeah, it's like, oh, it's like the most foul bit of cheating. It's just like he just did like a normal, like you do it to our guys all of the time.
Yeah, I mean, Harry doesn't have a high opinion of this Slytherin guy, Flint. He thinks he looks like he is part troll. And I'm sorry, Harry, but posh people do just kind of look like that. But yeah, the game's going on, and from these stands, sort of Hermione and Ron notice that Harry is suddenly like losing control of his broom. And from where they're sitting, we sort of follow their perspective here, they notice that Snape is down in the bleachers, sort of staring at Harry and muttering something under his breath. So immediately they think that he is behind whatever's happening to Harry, and Hermione runs off to try and sort of distract him long enough to protect Harry. She knocks over Professor Quirrell and gets to Snape and sets his cloak on fire, which feels a little bit harsh, but sure. And sure enough, like, Harry regains control of his broom, and the game wraps up pretty quickly from here. Like, the snitch appears again, Harry chases it down and manages to catch it in his mouth. Impressive stuff.
Yeah. So, for this whole bit with the Quidditch game, I do have like things to say about it. Like, I think like not much happened. I don't know. I think like things are happening. Like, you have the, like, every chapter or like with this one, there's this new kind of like new threat, or this, like, a thing happens, which is that someone tries to knock him off his broom in the middle of the game, and they think it's Snape, and they stop Snape from doing it, and they tell an adult, so they go tell Hagrid. I'm not sure if he counts as an adult, but they think he does, because they're 11 and they're kind of idiots. So they go tell Hagrid, and they're like, Snape was trying to kill Harry, and he's like, no, he wasn't, he probably wasn't, and they don't. He does not convince them that Snape was not trying to kill Harry, but they don't tell another adult about it. They just kind of take Hagrid as, like, they don't, he makes them insecure enough that other people would believe them, but they don't try to tell other people. And it's, the whole bit here with, there's I don't know, I'm sort of like organizing my thoughts, because there's a lot of stuff here with, to me, with how, so in the middle of this Quidditch match, from the perspective of, like, the adults in the room, like, someone does try to kill Harry in the middle of this Quidditch match. And it's stopped. And, like, this is not cause for, like, a 5-alarm meltdown at the school of, like, okay, we must investigate, we must try to find out who is trying to kill another student at the Quidditch pitch. Was this a student? Was this a teacher? We get to find who this is. This is going to be a whole thing. No, that doesn't happen. Life just kind of proceeds, and they get Snape to referee the next Quidditch match, and he's going to prevent any funny business from happening. And that's just how they deal with it. Like, there's no like.
This implies to me that this sort of thing therefore must happen almost every game.
Yes, so something like this. Like, it does. Everyone does stop. Like, when it's happening, Harry's broom is acting up. The rest, everyone else is watching this. It's like, oh shit, his broom is acting up. Something is going on. And then, it stops, and he catches it, and yay, the game is, like, everything's yay. But there isn't, like, the way, like, how much not of a big deal this is.
This is happening. Maybe it's like ice hockey, and everyone's like, the real show.
Yeah, well, like, it was the thing that, like, Marcus, like, the game doesn't stop. The game continues, but no one's paying attention to it. They're paying attention to the situation here. But, like, the game continues, like, Marcus Flint scores, like, 5 goals when no one cares, because, like, Harry's...
There's this beautiful image in my head of him doing, like, the Millhouse throwing the frisbee to himself, of, like, chucking the ball through the hoop, flying all the way over to pick it up, throwing it back.
I think, that's just what he does. Oh, poor Marcus Flint, you thought you mattered. So that whole aspect of this, I guess we can talk a bit more. This is talking about, like, the mystery side of things.
There's kind of a dramatic irony in that as we are also adults and able to sort of read between the lines, we know that Hagrid's right and that Snape actually has no real reason to try and kill Harry. Just because he doesn't like him very much, he wouldn't try to kill him. And, we pick up hints throughout, like, Hermione knocking Professor Quirrell, as well as attacking Snape, is what ends the attack. So I think it's fun how, like, the audience is left entirely enough evidence to make their own conclusion that Snape is actually a red herring. But the kids are just purely, like, just through pure spite, are like, no, it's Snape.
Yeah. Yes. I like how they're 11 and they're kind of idiots. And I have a sense that, I guess this might be something to talk about, like, when we get to the end of the year and can sort of look back at the story as a whole. So, like, what was this year from the perspective of kids that aren't 11? Like, from the perspective of the adults, what, like, the stuff that has been going on, the three-headed dog, we're housing this thing at Hogwarts. A troll is let in. Someone tried to kill Harry at the Quidditch match. Various things are like the stuff that's going on. What is this like from their perspective? And kind of because, like, again, someone tried to kill Harry at the Quidditch match, and nothing really happens. And I feel like behind the scenes in the staff room, what arguments are happening between, like, McGonagall and Dumbledore about what they should be doing about things.
To be fair, from the adult's perspective, all of this could just be seen as, like, yep, same old Hogwarts, just random shit happening.
Yeah, child endangerment. It's what we do. But yeah. So anyway, so on the chapter itself, I've forgotten this chapter existed, or I just kind of, like, glazed over it because I was like, oh, I really want to get to Mirror of Erised. Mirror of Erised is great, but like actually reading it, it's like, oh no, this is like, I don't actually care about Quidditch that much, but they make it very fun by adding in, like, you know, you have a dramatic thing that's happening, you have Lee Jordan, who's a delight, you have, you know, and then it does this thing that is fascinating to me, or so it breaks Harry's perspective.
I think that is interesting.
Which I think this is, yes, and I think that is like one of the only times it ever happens in the books that Harry's perspective breaks. And what I mean by that is that they switch from, like, normally everything is through Harry's POV, and if there's anything that's not in his POV, it's like cordoned off in its own chapter, and it's like a prologue or something, you know? It's not, the books are through Harry's eyes. Except for this little bit, the camera moves to the stands to Ron, Hermione, and Hagrid, and the thing that they're doing. And there's an almost kind of, like, there's a cinematic kind of sensibility and logic to it, I think.
Because I think it's, like, it's not really a conscious choice so much as one that has to be made, because there is nothing, Harry can't do anything to be, like, the agent in the scene. He is...
Yeah, and so, like, he could, you could maybe tell it, like he's up there dangling, like, maybe he would see Hermione doing this, and that is how you could tell this bit. But I don't know, that's kind of, like, he's so far up, I don't think that would work. So yeah, this is the better way to tell the story, or, like, you could have it, like, after it's fixed, she tells him afterwards what she did to stop it. But again, I don't think that, like, that doesn't work as well in the heat of the moment for telling the story. So I think, like, a lot of the time, like, for Rowling's influences as a writer and the way that she writes, especially as like a kind of green writer, which she is, like, with this first one, I think that I get the sense that, I don't know, like, she's seen movies as much as she's read books, and that's kind of where, like, some of, like, the way things will cut between characters, and the way, like, I don't know, like, there's this kind of, like, sectioning off for scenes and stuff. It's interesting in part because later on, she, like, in her career, she will try to write screenplays, and she will not be good at it. And I feel like if she had taken, like, a screenwriting course, or had anyone actually giving her guidance about this, I don't know, I feel like there is a version of Rowling who could be very good at screenwriting, but it happens, but by the time she comes to it, she's, like, off on her cloud of privilege and never, like, bothers to actually learn how to do it.
I think there's also, like, this could also be put down to this just being a kid's book, but, like, these books are very much prose light. It's mostly descriptions of actions, descriptions of discussions, like, again, like, setting a scene and describing the scene, more so than, like, describing things within it. And I think that's also, like, where there's kind of a common joke at Rowling's expense about how much she uses adverbs when it's kind of a clunky way of writing. But that kind of, to me, makes sense, if you look at it as, like, she's writing this more as a scene in some sort of, like, TV show or something compared to a book.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not exactly criticism, it's just, like, an interesting, like, with the, sort of, like, the character of her writing. And it's something that I guess I've become kind of sensitive to now. And so rereading the books, like, through that lens, it's like, oh, this is this feels in some ways more like a script for something than, like, a book.
I wonder if that's also part of why they caught on like they did. Just, like, it's a type of book that's maybe, like, a bit easier to read for children who don't enjoy how books tend to conventionally be written.
Possibly. That's possible. I don't know. I think it's just kind of like, maybe it's a new sensibility of how we take in narratives now. Like, not exactly like kids don't enjoy reading. That's not what I mean. It's more like, I don't know, like that kind of, like the breaks between scenes and moving from one thing to another and kind of focusing more on the action and, like, setting things up. And we don't want to sit through, like, paragraphs of description. We want to, get to stuff we like snappy dialogue. We like, it's, I like the different kind of narrative. And it is a very, modern kind of
it's interesting because, like, yeah, it kind of speaks to being a bit of a green rider, but it's also like almost the opposite approach that most people's first piece of writing has, where like, at least speaking personally, the first stuff I ever wrote as a kid, it was way too descriptive. I spent so much time talking about shit that does not matter at all.
Yeah, that's one thing about Rowling. She, like, in this, she's good at like if it's not important to the story, if it doesn't set the scene, if it doesn't inform on the characters, then there's no reason to say it, you know? Like, you don't just like say like loads and loads and loads of prose just because you can, or just to fill up the page because you feel like a book needs to be thick. Like, you know, it, like, there'll often be like a lot of like in scenes like in Diagon Alley and stuff, you'll have like a lot of details around you, you'll have a lot of details of things, but they tend to be kind of like, I don't know, like sharp and punchy details, like little things that like, ooh, that really sticks out. But it doesn't spend a lot of time on stuff that doesn't really
and it also like lets you cover a lot of time, whole school year in a book that's not particularly long. And like, I think especially that works when the kids are this young, because realistically, you could say that a kid, what they did in a month was go to school and play Pokemon, and that's about it. Kids don't tend to have particularly rich inner lives at that point.
Yeah, the year goes by at a really fast clip at this point. Like, we go, like, Quidditch is November, December is Mirror of Erised, then we're post-Christmas in the next chapter, and, you know, and like only a few more chapters, and then that's a whole year. Sort
of in closing on this chapter, the one other thing I thought about was there's a really dark universe where if Hermione doesn't happen to bop into Q, Harry just fucking dies.
Well, no, he doesn't, because Snape, well, like, you know, like, what was Snape actually
I'm guessing he was doing, like, a counter charm or something.
Yeah, Snape was saving him. And so, I think like, Harry probably doesn't. Like, the Weasley twins are circling below to catch him if he falls. And if... Yeah, so I don't think he was gonna die. But...
Of course, Snape may say that he was trying to help Harry do a counter charm, but we all know he was being neutral and just whispering full under his breath.
Like crossing his fingers. Okay. Alright, so moving on from this chapter, next one is Mirror of Erised, which is, that's Christmas break.
Oh my god. We sort of kicked this chapter off with Malfoy just being... Literally just off the bat, we open this chapter and Malfoy is saying your parents are dead. Just not wasting any time. I like this sort of... Malfoy has a real feeling in these chapters of like, he is just saying the most vile shit he can, but at this point Harry and Ron are a little bit over him, and so they don't really respond to him that much.
Oh, it's so tragic. It's so tragic, because he wanted to be his friend, and he's been and now it's like fully dissolved. There's no coming back. Fully dissolved into fully like bitter, like, and now like just trying, like, he's not. I still have the sense that like what Malfoy really wants is attention of some kind. And so that's why he's like, why is he doing this? Why is he being mean? Because that's a way to get attention.
Crabbe and Goyle looking at each other like, honestly, at this point, Banter's getting a bit weak, Malfoy. You know, you're not getting much of a response anymore. I don't know, man.
Maybe he just doesn't hate you that much. Again, like, no, he will hate me. He will revile me. I will be his mortal enemy.
In the original uncut version, of course, Malfoy is just saying the most disgusting slurs you can think of at Harry. But yeah, Christmas break is happening, and the kids have been, because Hagrid let slip about the name of this guy, Nicholas Flamel, who has something to do with that package that's being hidden away. Like, it was Flamel.
Nicholas Flamel. Or is it... Yeah.
Nicky Flannel, is what I'll call him. But yeah, he let slip about that.
Yeah, and the thing is that, like, Nicholas Flamel is actually, like, a French national icon to some degree. And so... They actually, in the American version of this book is called Sorcerer's Stone, because they think Americans are stupid and they won't read, American kids won't read a book that says Philosopher on it. but in France they had to change it because Nicholas Flamel was too obvious if you're in France. Like, it gives the entire game away, because in France, like, he's much more well-known as a figure.
I see, so it's like if a book was called, the story, I don't know, fucking Harry Potter and Excalibur, and they're like, a Dumbledore knew an Arthur.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, everything is very easily put together there. But yeah, so Nicholas Flamel. So in the last chat, like, Hagrid tells them that Snape did do it, and Hagrid, who's just like a sieve for information, accidentally slips to them, Nicholas Flamel is involved with,
and it's very like on. It's very classic detective, because they get nothing past this damned name. So they're like properly fucking combing through the library books, just all of the ones about like the most notable wizards, trying to find who this guy is. This does feel very like we get really into like the detective-y stuff here. I could even imagine them having a fucking corkboard at this point. Yes. Into the library, which includes like they really want to read like these forbidden, restricted books, but most of these are for they teach about the dark arts, for defense against the dark arts for older students, right? And to me, this feels like if your high school education involved reading the Anarchist Cookbook. Like, this probably shouldn't be something that just everyone knows. This is maybe like, you know, if you want to get into wizarding counterterrorism.
Yes. Yeah. That is, I guess, what you would compare the restricted section to.
You know, like Wizard Mein Kampf.
Yes. I mean, yeah. Like, you know, that in later books, that restricted section is going to be very relevant. But yeah.
But yeah, they're like sleuthing around. We get like quite a few scenes of them just in the common room. We keep establishing the fucking wizard chest. Like every scene where we cut to them sort of having a brainstorming session, wizard chess will probably be involved. I didn't go to boarding school, but like this very much reminds me of like in the dead of winter at uni on the weeks up until we go home, like everyone just hanging around in the kitchen all the time because it's too cold to do anything else.
Yeah.
So that was kind of that's cozy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That makes sense because like they may not have always been like inside the common room before, but now it's colder and so now they're inside.
Especially when we get to Christmas and like Harry and Ron are the only kids staying over. The way they describe it, I imagine Ron like a fucking county manor lord, like in his dressing gown, sitting in his big comfy chair.
Well, like the dressing gown knit by his mom, but yeah.
Christmas comes around and Harry is ecstatic that he's got some presents. Oh
wait, I guess we should mention Hermione goes home for Christmas. Does. Harry and Ron are the ones staying at school, and it's a big deal for Harry because this is like the first Christmas he's actually getting to enjoy, and he gets like a small handful of presents, which is an amount, and it does include something from Dursley's. It does
50 whole p.
How much is
50 piddly pence?
Okay, how much is that?
That is £half. For reference, for like American or other listeners who don't use the pound, it's obviously changed with time, but at the time I would guess 50p would be enough to buy a can of Coke.
Okay, so it's not like insultingly small amount of money. It's not like they gave him a penny or they gave him
I think it's funnier than giving him a penny that they gave him a still tiny amount of money, but one that is like just about usable.
Yes. And Harry, like, immediately gives it to Ron because, like, he's in Wizardland. He has no use for Muggle money here. And Ron's like, ooh, it's a thing.
He gets like we get like kind of a cute thing of like Harry gets his own knitted Weasley sweater because he's sort of now unofficially part of the clan. Yeah.
And, okay, so I have a mom who knits.
Me too.
And I know, I have a rough idea of how long it takes her to knit something, and I have a feeling that Mrs. Weasley is using magic to make like 7 8. Yeah, I guess I think her husband doesn't grow out of them, so maybe he doesn't get a Weasley sweater every single year. But the kids are growing, so they get sized up every year. Actually, why would you make like how many maroon sweaters do you need in your life? I don't. Anyway, so logistics of this aside.
Yeah, Jesus, how much wool is she buying?
I have a feeling she's using magic to accomplish all this. Well, okay, how much wool is she buying? If you have someone who knits, you know that there's just an endless stash of knitting materials that get accumulated. I'm sure that she has enough wool. She has enough material in her stash for to survive the apocalypse.
It's very true. Yeah, until you pointed that out, I hadn't thought about that. Holy shit, she must be really either using magic or knitting up a fucking storm.
Yeah, I think what it probably is, and cause so she'd have to you could say it's oh maybe she starts knitting them and knits them over the whole year, but I feel like the reason why you would be knitting new sweaters is because the kids are growing, and so I think that she would have to wait to see how much they've grown to get one in the right size. So I would guess that it's a magic thing. If you come to her house around say September or November, there's just you have knitting needles floating in the air making 3 sweaters at once or something.
And one very tired sheep.
One very tired sheep. One very tired, very enchanted sheep.
One
yes.
One little detail I do like is that the kids all send each other or get each other sweets, and that is again just something that made me a bit nostalgic. That's very much a thing in Britain of when you're younger, you tend to get a slightly more expensive gift box of sweets for your friends as a present.
Okay.
So that was just I enjoyed that. That was cute.
That's a good detail. That's again, that's kind of a British thing. I don't know what I would get from my friends, but I don't think I usually got candy because I'm not really a candy person, and so I don't really think of it as a thing. But that's sweet.
It's to the point of when I work in a supermarket and we will have this time of year fucking giant displays full of these tins of sweets because they're that common a present.
Okay. Yeah, I guess yeah. I guess I don't think of friends very much at Christmas because Christmas is it's such a family thing for me.
Yeah, that's fair. It's also a thing of when you're at school, a teacher will probably bring in one of those, and every kid's allowed a sweet each, which when you're that age is fucking insane. Absolutely bonkers. But yeah, the big present that Harry gets is his stealth camo, his cloak of invisibility.
Yes.
With a mysterious, unsigned note just saying that it belonged to his father. And, sure enough, this thing is bonkers magic. It completely covers Harry in invisibility-ness. Presumably, he has to pull it over his face and then navigate blind and, peek every so often.
Yeah, I don't know how, how it works as a cloak. It doesn't really... So, see, when I was a kid, I think I knew that it wasn't an invisibility blanket, but whenever it's described, or in the films, it's kind of more of an invisibility blanket, a sheet you just throw over on you. And both he and Ron can fit under it, I guess because they're 11.
I'm imagining very much sort of 2 kids in a trench coat scenario there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that maybe maybe how the invisibility cloak works is that you can put it over your head and
you see through it.
Yeah, maybe you can see through it, or it's sort of I don't know, it makes all of you invisible. I don't know, because you can poke out your hand from it. But maybe if you put a cowl over your head and your face is in shadow, the shadow, when you're in the shadow of the invisibility cloak, it's also making you invisible somehow.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's kind of a weird thing. I think it's a problem the movies create by having to actually show how this thing would work. In the books, you can kind of be yeah, whatever.
But whatever. Anyhow, it's a really cool item. It's it's a very I don't know. it evokes a lot of interesting feelings about it, because it's both like it's this totem, it's this thing that belonged to his father, and it also has this kind of like, ooh, like the eerie side of magic to it in how it's described, where like it slithers in how it kind of pools, and like how it sort of flows when it is kind of like put on the floor, and it kind of gives you kind of an eerie feeling while you're wearing it, and you can't see your own hand in front of you and things, and
yeah. We then get a very comfy scene for me. It's Christmas dinner. And frankly, the kids going home for Christmas, fucking missing out. This sounds absolutely sick. I don't know what buttered peas are. We never had that in my house, and it sounds a bit gross. But the rest of the dinner sounds incredible. A big deal.
Finally, Hogwarts is impressing you with its cooking.
Yeah, a big deal is made out of the crackers. Now, admittedly, I do take umbrage with the idea that regular crackers are crap. They are, but that's the fun of them. I want my little paper crown. And bad joke. Do you have crackers in the US?
I think we do. I think that they're like less of a big deal here, but yeah, we have crackers. That's a thing.
Yeah, crackers are like, the expectation is you have them at Christmas. It's kind of just baked in for pretty much every household. And yeah, it's like...
actually what I would say is we have different kinds of crackers, and they're more associated with 4th of July.
Oh, okay. Like firecrackers.
We have like little flashbang poppers.
Yeah.
That like a bit of smoke comes out and things. And those are like, though I feel like I have had like something like a cracker at Christmas, but I'm far more associate that sort of thing with 4th of July.
Yeah, so just to explain quickly for anyone who hasn't encountered one before, basically it's like a little gunpowder paper lantern thing almost that you like pull apart at two ends, and the idea is you do it with someone you're sitting with. Whoever gets the big end gets the prize inside, and it's invariably a cheap little paper crown, a really shit joke, and some sort of like little doodad, like a shitty cheap chess set or like a little fidget toy, that sort of thing.
Okay. And so in the wizard crackers, when you pop them off, like, it makes a really big noise, and you get like a real hats, like an admiral's hat, I think was one of them.
Yeah.
Or like a flower bonnet.
This is the kind of thing that being a private school gets you. They got the real posh crackers. I love how Harry gets his wizard chess set from one of these. Did he not, like, as soon as he got a hold of that cracker, think, fucking hell, this is heavy?
Well, no, it's magic, because it's like, it's just kind of, I think it was just like in magic space. It's not. Oh, or what are you saying?
I don't know. I imagine they just float down to you or some shit, but I just imagined Harry, like, straining to pick this cracker up off the floor. Because it's got an entire fucking oak chess set inside.
In one of the crackers, there were, like, live white mice.
Ugh.
And, okay, see, I've had adventures with mice in my apartment this year. And so, when Harry's like, oh, I have a nasty feeling that Mrs. Norris ate the mice, I'm like, that's not a nasty feeling, that's a good feeling. Eat up, kitty. Like, kill the mice.
Every year after the Christmas party, Hogwarts becomes infested with rats.
Well, this is fine. Like, Mrs. Norris also does not get her due for keeping this place mice and rat free.
She's
or
one
mice
cat.
And rat.
She's one cat.
Yeah.
It's a whole castle. God bless her.
Mm-hmm.
We get like a little bit of like the adults getting a bit too drunk. Hagrid snubs McGonagall, and she goes for it. Yeah, I ship it. I don't know about you.
Well, good for them.
Yeah, this scene I think mostly exists just to be a nice thing that happens. And we progress onwards to that evening where Harry is going to give, like, the Cloak of Invisibility a test run.
Mm-hmm.
I like how he seems almost, like, kind of bewitched by it already. He's during the meal, he's thinking about it still.
Mm-hmm.
And he heads off to the restricted section, fucks up immediately by picking up the Screaming book, classic mistake, and has to, like, scarper because Filch shows up.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I don't know if, like, that particular is, like, you pick the wrong book and that's the one that screams, or that's just the alarm that the books have enchanted on them if someone who's not supposed to read them picks them up. That
could well be it. I had this image in my head of Filch, like, gently cuddling, like, nursing the book back to sleep like a baby.
That is a very sweet mental image, and I am keeping it, yes. Filch writes.
Because I was imagining, like, an outright, like, sentient book in my head, like a Necronomicon sort of thing.
I think that, yeah, so some of those books definitely have that sort of magic bookness to them, yeah.
But yeah, we get more of, like, a Scooby-Doo scene as Harry skulks off and has to, like, avoid Snape and Filch who are coming past him as he runs away. And he backs up into a classroom with a big ol' ornate mirror. And as he looks into it, he sees people behind him who, as he looks closer, he realizes are the ghosts of his family.
Well, they're not. Well, at first he thinks they might be ghosts, but it's more that, I mean, yeah, they're
images.
Yeah.
Like spectral kind of real feeling, but when he turns back, they're obviously not there, sort of thing. And he finds himself, like, quite bewitched by it. So it's quite a good sequence. I enjoyed this bit.
Mm-hmm. And so then he goes back. Then the next time he has to leave eventually.
Yeah.
And when he comes back, he brings Ron with him. And just to see the mirror, he's like, Ron, like, he wants to show Ron his family.
Yeah.
Who
he says to Ron, like, oh, you can see your family too, which implies at this point he just thinks it's the family mirror.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, Ron also has, like, this vision of himself as head boy, as head of the Quidditch team, captain, he's a prefect, basically imagining himself as Harry at this point.
Yeah. In some ways, yeah.
But, like, they both start bickering, and there's a clear, like, fucking, I don't know, magical artifact madness overtaking them as they start fighting over it. But their noise attracts Miss Morris into the room, and they have to skedaddle. Miss Morris, of course, looks into the mirror and sees Filch petting her and giving her some fancy feast.
and then she goes back to Filch, and he does just that.
Truly, this cat has achieved, like, complete fulfillment. And Harry comes back a third night on his own. He is staring into the mirror, but someone's in the room. It's Dumbledore. Yeah, Dumbledore apparently, like, saw them in here the night before, and considering that he has no real way of knowing, unless he happened to hear them the first night that they were in here, I like to think he just stands in this room invisible all the time.
Yeah, he comes here a lot, it seems.
Yeah. I like how he's described as sitting at a desk. I'm imagining him just, like, doing his fucking homework. He's regressed.
Well, I actually did kind of a double take at that, and it says I don't think he's sitting in, like, if it's like a desk, that I don't think he's sitting in the desk. I think he's kind of, like, on the, like, sitting on the desk.
I imagine him sat there like he's revising.
Okay. Well, either way, anyway.
Yeah, they have a chat about the nature of this mirror and how it, like, shows you a really enchanting picture of what you want the most, but obviously, like, you can lose yourself in the mirror. And, of course, when asked by Harry, Dumbledore, what do you see in the mirror yourself? He says, me, holding a copy of Nuts magazine.
Me, giving head to Wizard Hitler. No, he doesn't say that. No. He does not say that. He says, I see myself holding a pair of thick woolen socks.
Yeah.
It's a very whimsical thing to say. And Harry suspects it's like that he's probably lying.
I like that Harry thinks he's lying, because it seems like Harry's already like, I see through your twee bullshit, old man. You see Nicholas Flamel handing you a copy of Gay Bunny magazine.
You are gay as the 4th of July.
You see yourself shaking your ass to the B-52s.
You see yourself in a book series that was written at a time when gay people could be out. Anyway,
now you made it sad.
The Mirror of Erised said, do you see now why I was so like, ooh, we're gonna get to this chapter about it?
Yeah, I think that was definitely like, if not the strongest, one of the strongest chapters we've had so far. I really enjoyed. It sort of gets back into the sort of magic I enjoy with like the enchanting and the intoxicating nature of this.
Yeah, and it's when reading this one, because like earlier I was like in earlier episodes of the pod, like remember like the one where I made Harry my favorite character of the week.
Yes.
And like I talked about how like, oh, there's a really strong motivation in this character that is established like really kind of early on from minute 1. Everything about this character can be traced back to this desperate need to belong somewhere. And the way that he's kind of been starved of that for most of his life. Like you said, like the first year of his life was in his early formative state. He was getting the love and acceptance he needed to be a healthy person, and then that was taken away from him, and he spent 10 years with being starved of that, which is like a fundamental human need in that kind of way. And so now, like, the mirror is, I don't know, like, it's kind of, I don't know, in your hero's journey moment, it's kind of your meeting with the goddess or something, where you, I don't know, it very literally puts him in the face with, this is the thing that you want most, and it's also the thing that you cannot have. Or not in that way.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, like, a religiosity to it. It reminds me of, like fucking Satan tempting Jesus in the desert sort of thing.
Yeah, and it does have, like, it happens during, like, a holy time in the calendar. It happens at Christmas.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, where are we chapter-wise? We're at, we're a little more than halfway through the book. But you are, like, halfway through the school year. And you are at, like earlier on you were saying, like, oh, what's the point of the feasting? I guess it's just kind of to be a sweet thing. And it is. Like, it is, to be, like, nice stuff's going on, cozy and all that. But I think, like, this whole chapter, I think, is very well constructed as a little box unto itself. Like, the first thing that you start with is Malfoy saying, ha ha, your parents are dead.
True.
And
true.
And then subsequently you get scenes you get, like, sort of like, oh, isn't it great you have this found family, Harry? Look at the found family that you have. And then you have this contrast with Ron and the Weasley sweaters, and how you get a lot here with Ron's family. That's emphasized.
There's even a fucking line, like, from Fred to Percy of, like, Christmas is about family. Harry, yeah. The thing you don't have.
Yeah, that thing you don't have. Yeah, exactly. And so it's very, I don't know, I think it's done, I would say it's unsubtle, but I think that, I don't know, it's done well enough that you weren't, like, I don't know, like, oh, wow, this chapter's so heavy-handed with what it's about. You were more thinking about, like, ooh, like, all the magical stuff. But it is, I think, very, like, deliberate with what it's about.
Yeah.
And it starts from like, minute 1 to the end. And in this little thing where, yeah, and you get, like, Harry and Ron and in this, and you sort of see why they're friends and why they're drawn to each other as people. It's not just because buddy system, you're the first person who was nice to me, and so now I'm friends with you for life, because that's how school works. It is that, but it's also, like, they have like kind of opposing needs that they see in each other. Like Harry has this desperate need to belong. He wants a family. He wants his family. And Ron has a family. Ron is rich in family. And Harry is being invited into that, and that means a lot to him. And for Ron, you know, he doesn't have like the fame or the specialness or being someone significant that Harry has, just kind of innately, that he doesn't even quite like. He, you know, it's cool being famous, it's cool being awesome at Quidditch, but you know, if Harry could choose, he would choose in a heartbeat to have what Ron has over what he has.
Oh yeah, it's like it's very deliberate that they are like wishing for what the other has.
Yeah. And so, I don't know, it's just a very, I don't know, all of this, and this is stuff that's been, like, set up through everything so far. That all of this has been here, like, from the beginning, but the Mirror of Erised kind of distills it and does, like, this little piece that puts it all into focus. What's going on.
Yeah.
And what sort of has been built here.
You know, we give Ron an odd look because he's effectively wishing his parents were dead, but, you know, it's understandable.
Is he?
Nah.
Is he?
I'm saying that to be silly, but like, yeah. I think the other thing is like just in general with like you saying Christmas was interesting because yeah, there's kind of a religiosity about it, and that also kind of drives through with Harry being the boy who lived. That feels like a very sort of Judeo-Christian-y title or mythos around him.
That's not untrue. And there are people, it's interesting, like, we can talk a bit about the relationship between the Harry Potter books and religion, because it's honestly very interesting. Because Rowling is Christian. This is something that she's public about. I don't know, like, the depths, like, I don't know how much she's talking about, like, the depths of her belief and all that, but it has been, like, Harry Potter is famously banned by various like fundamental Christian communities and things, and they're like, oh, it's wizards, it's witchcraft, it's evil. And there's a kind of sad or maybe funny irony to the fact that if you actually read the books, Harry Potter is a very like Christian kind of a story in its way. Like the characters are kind of secular Christian, like Christmas is happening and stuff around the Christian calendar is happening. But it's never quite, I don't think they ever talk about God or Jesus in Harry Potter.
True, but there's also, like, very much, especially in this scene with, like, Dumbledore talking to Harry, it has big, like, pastor talking to a child vibes.
Yeah, it does. And Harry's whole thing, it's something that we're not quite to yet, but one of the main themes of the series is going to be love and sacrifice as an act of love. And that is a very, I mean, I don't think it's exclusive to Christians, but that is like a big deal in Christianity, is kind of those two things being intrinsically bound up together, that the greatest expression of love, or the greatest form of doing love, is a kind of sacrifice.
There is a certain, like, irony there in, like, these books that were banned for being unchristian and pagan are incredibly Christian if you look at their themes.
Yeah, and, I don't know, like, I'm only to some extent qualified to talk about this even. I'm, like, personally an atheist in my life, but I was raised, with a kind of Christianity in how I was brought up. And I know that if you look online, there are some people who are Christians, like deeply Christians, who've read Harry Potter and haven't been like, oh god, it's Satan, witches, and things. They've been like, no, like they meet it on its terms, and they really go into like the Christian themes of it.
Yeah,
and
that is weirdly like a something I'm aware of like there is a weird little like Christian Harry Potter sub-fandom.
Yes. And they're actually very intense about it. Or at least one particular guy is. I think his name is John Granger, which is a fun coincidence. But but yeah, there's this guy who he had like a podcast. He has a whole website and everything where he really gets into this. And I don't know if I quite follow him all the way down all his rabbit holes there, but I think that there definitely is something to it, that there's a lot that these books are expressing. And I think one of them is that there is a spirit, there is this a spirituality to them. And there is a kind of, I don't know, you're the one who's British, so maybe maybe I'm talking a bit far here, but as I understand, there's a kind of like in Harry Potter, there's not a tension that's more, I guess, harmonious than really attention between where you have like a lot. There's a lot in the series that's very pagan in its imagery, and there's also a lot that's very Christian in its imagery, and there's a kind of blend of them here.
Yeah, I think you're onto something in that, like, the way religion is a thing in the UK is fundamentally really different to, say, the States, in that there is this kind of, like, secular Christianity, but there is a much, much bigger divide sort of between your own personal life, where religion can factor in quite heavily, and, like, your public-facing life. So, like, it's been said that, like, in the US, it would be politically not at all good to be an atheist, whereas in the UK, it's kind of the reverse. A candidate who talked a lot about their religion, that would be seen as, like, not particularly appealing. Even to a country that's still, like, I think the polarity of people are still Christian. Part of that is, like, just the way we sort of treat private life as more private, the way we're sort of a more people who tend to keep to themselves. And also I just think the way, like, we have had these constant different strains of Christianity that have been really violent and opposed to each other over time, that's kind of boiled down to a willingness to have, like, this melting pot of a lot of different religious beliefs.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah, in my family, like, we were all atheists. My parents were both atheists, and I grew up that way. But, like, where I grew up is quite rural and was quite Christian. And I think that was seen as, like, there was a lot of pushback among kids my age from it. I wasn't the only one who was, like, a bit of a raging atheist. I think that was the exception rather than the norm. And even in the kids who were Christian, the way they practice is much, much more subtle than the way their parents might have practiced.
Interesting. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that you're definitely right. You're tapping into something there of, like, like the pagan and Christian stuff coexisting, and also, like, a religiosity that's much more subtle and sort of in the background.
Yeah, and it is. I don't know, like, there's also maybe sort of part of the medievalness with Harry Potter, where it's kind of like it throws back in a bunch of ways, but sort of like you know, like the paganness of it, that kind of stuff going on, like how blended those two things are, like the Christianness of Britain and the paganness of Britain. Like, the more far back you go, the more that's kind of
yeah.
The wilderness of belief there.
I definitely get you, like, especially when you go up north to Scotland, like, paganism was much more persisting there. Christianity was kind of a thing brought over by the Romans, and so it took longer for it to sort of seep up into the Highlands.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's interesting as well.
Yeah, and we can for, like, I guess on authorial intent, I like with if you go to, like, the Christian Potterheads, like, they're very much like they tend to be quite like, like, this is all Rowling's mastermindy stuff with what she's seeding in here. And yeah, I know, like, I think that there is, like, you know, she's an alchemy enthusiast. She's clearly, like, a medieval history enthusiast. She is knowledgeable about things. But I think a lot of this stuff I think is kind of like, I don't know, the background radiation you get when you write things, you know?
Yeah, that's part of, honestly, why I was interested in doing this pod, is like, you kind of get like a different perspective when I can sort of talk about just the general sort of background culture of Britain that seems to have informed a lot of these books.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is. We're getting very meta here, but I guess I could go further meta that as like the Harry Potter books are, they've kind of become one of the symbols of Britain in a way now. Like they've achieved that kind of like cultural icon status, kind of whether you want them to have or not. They're, I don't know, like how would you, because like this is a sort of thing where like with the premise of the pod, like, because you, British man who has never read Harry Potter, but it is something that you've been like, you know, it's the culture you're in is kind of marinated in it at this point.
It's weird because Harry Potter is something that I think the reason I've been enjoying a lot of these like little bits of British ephemera is because a lot of them are a bit more subtle, and also it's not, there's a real palpable feeling when you're reading something that is by someone British but is clearly trying to like make a novelty of it being British to like an international audience versus something that feels like more naturally written. And yeah, Harry Potter is definitely like, there's some stuff in it like the Arthurian stuff like you talked about, or like appeals to medieval history, which maybe is like a little bit less it's like uniquely English, but most of it just feels like describing the culture in which it takes place.
Yeah, I see. So it feels like you're saying it feels kind of like authentically.
Yeah. I feel like you could conceivably set the story of Harry Potter in a lot of different like European countries which have a similar sort of folklore about magic, and substitute in their own conventions and their own sort of cultural touches, and it wouldn't feel like the books wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Even though they're like these symbols of British culture, I would honestly argue that I don't think they're like essentially British in the way something like James Bond might be.
Okay, interesting. It is, yeah, I wonder how much people think of Harry Potter as being like a cultural ambassador for Britain to the world, because it is like, yeah, it's so, I like, how do I put this? Like you, like kids in Harry Potter, like I read Harry Potter growing up, and it was very easy to imagine myself at Hogwarts or my friends at Hogwarts without thinking about it too hard. I mean, eventually, like, probably by the time I was, like, at least 14, I was thinking about it too hard. But when I was, like, 11 and reading about it, like, the Britishness of it, like, oh, they have some funny words and things. But it wasn't something that, like, it didn't feel like an alien kind of a story to me.
Yeah, it's weird in that, like, because it also takes place in a place that isn't Britain, this whole other, like, parallel world to it, I see a lot of things where it's like, would you want to be a Jedi, a wizard, or, like, a Pokemon trainer sort of thing? It's like, it's on that level of, like, it's a very fictionalized universe.
Although, of course, with Pokemon is its own conversation. Like, this is... there's a version of this podcast where you're Japanese and we're playing the Pokemon games for the first time.
Definitely. I think there's like the same sort of thing. There's like things we see as being part of a fictionalized Pokemon world are actually just reflections of pretty normal Japanese culture.
Yeah. And I wonder if that's part of why it can have the kind of international success it has, where it's both something that, like, you know, it has these very personal, authentic touches to it, but it also is, like, very broadly accessible on an international scale.
Yeah, by nature of it already being this fantastical world, you don't feel alienated.
Yeah. I don't know, interesting. Like, recipe for all y'all. Okay, who's gonna cook up the next thing that will eat the sun?
Me.
It's like, well...
I will.
Yeah. Anyhow, we do have a whole other chapter to get to, and this is running a little long, so we should probably we should get to it. But yeah, Mirror of Erised is a banger.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, that was like, I'm more than happy to go a bit long, because I think that was a really good discussion to be had there. But yeah, our last chapter for today is it's named after Nicky Flanell himself. So Hermione comes back, and she is immediately pissed that Harry's taken his eye off the ball. I don't care about this mirror and all that gay shit. What is going on with Nicky Flanell? I want to know about him.
Yes! And so this is... Okay, I guess a kind of a note here, but, like, on the value of Ron, because Hermione bows out for the whole Mirror of Erised chapter. She's not there because she doesn't have the emotional connection to Harry in the same way that Ron does. Like, it wouldn't be... Like, if you had Hermione there, I don't think... I don't know exactly what would she have contributed to that chapter.
Yeah,
like she would have wanted to ask questions about the mirror. She would have wanted to look up where it's from. She would have had all those kinds of things. But that's not really like Ron's far better as a companion for that chapter because he brings this like this emotional connection. But anyhow, yeah. So Hermione's.
There's a fun thing that, like, now Hermione is back, we kind of see that, honestly, her and Ron kind of have their own little strong friendship already. Because they start, when Harry brings up that Snape's going to be refereeing the next big Quidditch game, they're both, like, playing off each other, they're joking off each other, in like, quite an endearing way. And, yeah, they both see the danger in, like, Snape refereeing this game that Harry's going to be playing in. But he decides he's going to knuckle down and he's going to play in it. At this point, Neville comes in. He's been cursed to hop around because his legs have been fucking, like, chained together by Malfoy. And Harry tries to cheer him up, gives him a chocolate frog, and Neville gives him the playing cards that come with it, because Harry collects them. He's got a whole binder full of them, very relatable. And it's the same Dumbledore card he got at the start of the book, which we have read the description of. So, like, keen readers will get this information with Harry, that Nicky Flanell was, like, a partner of Dumbledore's. He's gay. He was Dumbledore's ex-fling.
Well, no, because then they look it up, and Nicholas Flamel is married to a lady.
I call bullshit.
Well, I mean, okay, you're around for 600 years. That can't possibly be a completely monogamous marriage. Let's all be honest with ourselves.
He is an opera lover. He's French.
Come on. Like, they have a situation 600 years. Anyhow, go on.
Yeah, so they've cracked this little mystery of who this guy is, but for the time being, that's going to be like, we're going to leave that ball in the air, because the big game's happening. Big game.
Yep, we gotta go to the big game.
Sunday. It's the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I like how, because of the way this has been set up, they can't play Slytherin again. So the big game that decides, like, who wins the house championship, it's against Hufflepuff.
Actually, this is not Sunday. This is, I think that they play 3 matches in the. So this is they played Slytherin first, and now this is 2, and then the last one I think is going to be against Ravenclaw.
Okay, so this is Saturday.
Yes.
Cool. This game is, like, we go into a lot less detail with this one, probably because it's mostly kind of here to move the plot along. But while Hermione and Ron are keeping, like, a really close eye on Snape, and Malfoy shows up to just, again, say the worst shit he possibly can, except this time Neville and Ron kick the shit out of him for it.
Or, like, Ron kicks the shit out of him, and then Crabbe and Goyle sent Neville to the hospital.
But to be fair to Neville, he held them off, and that's what counts.
He did, yeah, he tried.
What's interesting is this game lasts, like, 5 seconds, and there's even, like, a line about, like, Harry must have set a new record for catching the snitch.
And he's so good. He's such the greatest boy
who
was ever a boy.
This disgusts Snape, so he spits on the ground like a football hooligan he is.
There are no non-football hooligans in Harry Potter, except for, like, maybe Hermione.
Headbutts someone, stamps on their nuts, a real thing a footballer did in the UK.
God. Okay, but yeah.
But, like, Harry doesn't stick around for the celebration. He notices Snape sneaking off to the Forbidden Forest, and he trails him on broomback, which, just to me, was quite a funny image of him, like, getting smacked in the face by branches trying to follow. Snape and Quirrell have a little meeting, and unfortunately, like, we know at this point that Quirrell, like, Snape is here to be like, Quirrell, you're up to no good, and I know you're up to no good. But through, like, some tragic mishearings and the fact that Snape cannot not talk menacingly, this just further reinforces Harry's impression that Snape's behind it all, and that he's even, like, strong-arming Quirrell into helping him, and Quirrell's a victim here.
Yes. Well, I think what's going on here, I think what's going on here is that Snape is double agent, like, he's pretending to he's pretending to do the thing that Harry thinks he's doing, but what he's actually doing is, like, double agenting for Dumbledore or something. We're gonna, by the time we get to the end and the whole mystery of this is unraveled, then we can talk about, like, what the plot of what the hell is going on with here? What is Dumbledore's plan? Who knew what about Quirrell when? Because I have a lot of questions.
I'm just gonna say this for the record. Like, have you played, like, or are familiar with Metal Gear Solid?
No.
There's a character in it called Otacon who reminds me of Snake in that he's, like, so many layers deep at this point with his double agent shtick that he doesn't even seem to really know who he's fighting for at this point.
I'm just omnidirectionally menacing is what I am at this point.
Like, he hypnotizes himself to preserve his own cover from himself, and that's a layer that I think Snape would be on.
I think so too, yeah.
Yeah, this is a short and sweet chapter. That's that.
All right. So, woo! That has been a lot. There was a lot that we got into with these ones. So I think it's time that we're gonna go right ahead to our extracurriculars of this round. And the first thing of the week is, who is the chosen one? Who is the favorite character? Harry Potter has loads and loads of characters. Not too many new ones this round, but we got quite a lot of development with some of the ones we already had. So who is the chosen one of this week in Harry Potter?
Ooh, I think, like, a pretty good, like, honorable mention is Oliver Wood. We don't get a huge amount from him, but he's dumb as a sack of bricks, and I appreciate that.
Talk about how is he dumb as a sack of bricks? It's just like his prepared speech, or
the idea that he gives the exact same speech every week and yet somehow forgets that women play on his team. Yeah.
He is a himbo Oliver Wood. I support this.
I might be controversial. I think my favorite character this week is Snape.
Ooh, okay, go to town. Talk about.
I think there's like a lot of interesting stuff with Snape in these chapters of, like, you can tell that he's not actually behind whatever's going on here, but because you have this intrigue of, like, he's definitely up to something, though. And him sort of balancing his hatred of Harry, him trying to figure out what's going on, and his own just natural suspiciousness, I think just makes his actions very funny, with the context of, like, he's not the real villain here.
I see. Like, he doesn't... Do you think he has any idea of how he comes across as the designated red herring?
No.
Like, does he know how suspicious he seems?
I think that's the funny part. I think he has no idea.
Probably, yeah.
Just the idea of him being like, what's going on in this corridor, and getting fucking mauled by a giant dog? Hysterical.
Okay, so I think that's a good pick for this week with Snape. Snape has been around. My honorable mention this week is to Percy. He's not here a lot, but I I love how characterization for these people is done by making them like a bit buffoonish. Like how like where Harry plays chess against Ron, and he suspects he might have done better if Percy hadn't been helping him so much.
Yeah, and
And
also the idea that means that, like, of all the Weasley kids, Ron is whipping the ass against all of them at chess. Is really fun.
And Percy, like and there's just so much. Like I like all of Ron's family, but Percy, I think, is a kind of sort of an undersung as just like a delightful side presence when he's like, I'm a prefect, and he's got his thing, and he likes to be right, he likes to do his thing, and he's also he's not as good as he thinks he is at the doing of things. But I don't know, it's just there's something he's kind of like an older Hermione in some ways.
He's a classic like prefect syndrome of like demanding authority and getting none.
Yeah. Oh, also, I guess I should say that is this a thing? I feel like this is a thing. I forget, but I remember that Oliver Wood gets shipped with people, and I think that Percy is one of the people that he gets shipped with. Kind of for no reason aside from they're about the same age and they have these very contrasting personalities.
And you've only read the first book.
What?
And you're like a teenager who's only read the first book, so you're like, oh, who's my age?
Pretty much. Anyhow, my real pick for this week is Ron, and I think that I've already said a lot about why he's my pick this week. But yeah, I think that Ron, like, you know, you have his chess thing. I think that he really shines this week as Harry's friend. And you get a lot of emotionally perceptive Ron. And, like, there's a particular bit, like, he's the one who's most keeping tabs on, like, Harry's emotional state. Like, he sees a look on Harry's face and he's like, oh, what's wrong? And he is the one who's picking up on, like, when the whole thing's going on with Mirror of Erised, Ron is also tempted by it. But he also he realizes this thing is bad for you and we should stay away from it. In fact, I think it's specifically bad for you, Harry, and you should stay away from it.
Almost because like his wish is a bit more shallow. I think you can kind of look past it a bit easier.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, so emotionally perceptive Ron and Snape are our chosen ones of the week.
Imagine.
All right.
Imagine. It's been like 5 years since the end of the books. You're hanging out with Ron Weasley on a Tinder date, and he's telling you about his most dangerous and exciting Warhammer battles. You check your phone. You're only 20 minutes in.
Yup. Ron Weasley, Warhammer enthusiast. But all right. So we have our magical moment of the week is the next one, which is something magical that you found inviting or evocative or the reasons why wizards should be in hiding. I think we have a bumper crop this one. We don't have a lot of things, but the things that we got are very good.
Yeah.
So what's your magical moment?
I'm going to toss an honorable mention to the wizard crackers just because that's something I would like that in real life. If crackers had things that were like full present grade gifts. But I think it's a pretty easy win this week for the Mirror.
Okay. Do you want to talk more about sort of why the Mirror for you, or do you think we've already dwelt on the Mirror quite a bit?
Yeah, just in summary of like earlier, I just like how it feels. Its nature feels magical. How it like draws you in. It isn't just a functional thing. It's got like this feeling of like otherworldliness about it.
Yeah. For me, kind of for similar reasons, the invisibility cloak is my pick. And that part of it, like, this is actually, not to riling, like, we clown on her a bit when her writing can be a bit, we got the adverbs and whatnot, poorly chosen descriptions, but I like how like she can do stuff with prose description, and everything around the invisibility cloak just makes it seem so like ooh, like it's got that kind of shivers down your spine sort of thing. And the way that it's tied to his father, it sort of ties those things together. So like as he's like accessing this, the ghost of his the ghost of his father, the ghost of this family he once had. There is this kind of eeriness to all of that. And so like, yeah, in the invisibility cloak, like, I don't know, it talks about how like you can only see moonlight. I don't know, there's a bit where like moonlight and shadows are evoked around it and things. And so it has this very I don't know, it kind of like sort of like there's a spookiness to it and also a comfortingness to it, and also like how it opens up this whole new world of exploration because you can be invisible and go places.
Yeah.
And the adventures that you go on with Invisibility Cloak, like you go to the restricted section and that whole bit. I think that was the thing that I would have nightmares about as a child, was opening the book and it's screaming at me. Like that. Oh. But yeah. So
I think, the idea that like not only is having this thing cool in itself, but it also lets you have free reign over Hogwarts.
Yes. And that is like not an unhazardous thing to have, free reign over Hogwarts. But all right. So, and now our last thing of the evening is peak Rowling, our peak Rowling moment. And peak Rowling can be many things. It can be a poorly chosen adverb. It can be latent transphobia, lying in the recesses of her subconscious that bubble to the surface. But so for this week, what do you have for our peak Rowling moment?
Now I could say nobbled.
You could say nobbled, and that would be I would respect that pick.
But it might be some sort of 14th century slur, and I don't want to say it anymore. I think my pick is going over to something I said earlier. Just Malfoy, just his whole presence in these chapters is just like J.K. Rowling. Like I know exactly what this kid says. The shit that comes out of his mouth. Just what is the worst but kind of poorly put across thing he could say? Like an 11-year-old.
Your parents are dead.
It's so an 11-year-old trying to say the most hurtful thing possible.
Okay, but you say like it's peak Rowling. Is that a mistake to you?
Just that it feels like Malfoy is being written on autopilot. Like, yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Like I can kind of see that. Like I still hold the Draco Malfoy woman scorn thing, but he's devolved now at this point where it's no longer fun for him, or it's
what would your peak Rowling moment be?
I sort of have, well, there's one thing I need to say, which is, so the first scene where Harry, he goes to the teacher's room to find Snape, and I'm just gonna read this section. He pushed the door ajar and peered inside, and a horrible scene met his eyes. Snape and Filch were inside, alone. Snape was holding his robes above his knees.
That fucking scene in The Shining where like they open a door and it's like a dude in a bear suit giving a guy a blowjob.
Did she know? Did you know what the words were meant in the sentence that you were writing? Did you know?
Only if only it was like, get out, Snape ejaculated.
I'm just
saying that. Using that phrase as well.
For the record, Snape and Filch is not a popular fic, or not a popular choice shipping wise.
I think it's the only non-problematic choice.
Right, so far it is. But you do I think you find out in other books that Filch was the caretaker when Snape and Harry's father were at school together.
Yeah.
So I think that it probably would be problematic if that was a thing. Because Filch would have been an adult when Snape was a kid at school, at least for some period of time. Which an age difference is not a problem, but just sort of like when you're alongside each other at that, I think that probably is not a good look.
You're correct that like it's inappropriate when you were sort of like a guardian to a child at that age, that you would then have a relationship with them.
Yeah.
But damn it, Reba, you really shut me down here.
I know, because, like, the thing is that, like, greasy, ugly, unpleasant, sinister, suspicious gay people have rights, is the thing.
The Babadook.
They're allowed to be infixed to, and I feel like, maybe through Harry's eyes, like, the attractiveness of Snape, or even the attractiveness of Filch, is a bit skewed. So, like, to him, they're adults. They're both a million years old. They're both, like, So, I don't know. I just needed to read out that bit for us. In general, I think that writing-wise, this chapter, whenever Harry has to overhear something for the mystery, it's always very clunky. Like, whatever, like, he happens to be saying, like, the exact right thing for Harry to hear. Like when Snape and Filch are talking, they're not, like, I don't know, they're just, like, well, what he overhears is, like, Snape, okay, so we have it where Harry has to overhear Snape talking about the three-headed dog.
Yeah.
And so Snape is just like, how are you supposed to keep track of the three heads? And it's just, like, it's very on the nose. And then later on with Snape and Quirrell, with Snape's intimidation, it doesn't quite feel like a conversation between adults about something.
Yeah, it is a little bit, like, it is a little bit cartoonish.
Yeah. So I guess it's not the worst thing. It just, like, I never thought about it as a kid. But I feel like there's more subtle ways you could have done that. Like, Harry opens the door. You could have had him just look at Snape's leg and be like, oh, that looks like the bite marks from a giant dog. And then Snape tells him to get out, and he does. And then he like, concludes on his own, like, oh, what would have probably made those bite marks?
Yeah.
And what he overhears from Snape is not so on the nose, but maybe a little bit suggestive in that direction. And then, like, there's just the Snape-Quirrell conversation, like, I don't know, how intimidation between adults.
Yeah. It's just Snape's disease where he can't say anything without looking shady. It's like you see him with a box of Nuts magazines and you ask him what they're for and he says the sort of sordid deed which you would do best to not ask me further about. And
that's not a bad Snape impression.
Thank you.
But all right. So I think that concludes us for this week. And okay, we are coming in under 2 hours, barely, but we did manage it. So I'm quite proud of us for that.
Yeah.
But yes. So, and next week, or next time you hear us, we're going to be chapters 14, okay, what do you want to do next time? Because we actually have an awkward number. We have 4 chapters left of the book. And a lot happens in some of those chapters. So we can either take them all at once, which I think would be too much, or we can maybe do 2 and 2.
I think 2 and 2 makes sense.
Okay, so I think the next time we're going with Norbert the Norwegian Ridgeback and the Forbidden Forest.
Yes. All that remains to be said is thank you once again for tuning in. This is the biggest and only pirate radio broadcast coming out of Hogwarts basement.
Hogwarts' dungeon is where we do this. Kept company by the corpses of rats that Mrs. Norris has slain.
And we're in a similar, like, between homes right now when it comes to hosting this podcast, but we will always have these on the YouTube channel. And we're looking about sorting out, like, more official hosting currently. In terms of where you can find us, you can follow me at PRPGecko. I just tweet. But, some things are coming down the pipes and might be materializing sometime next year. And Reba.
I am Reba, and you can find the stuff that I've worked on at... If you Google True Hans Soul Rebel, you can find my masterpiece, or in the fanfiction realm, my masterpiece, and subsequent works. True Hans Soul Rebel.
That's www.truehanssoulrebel.org.
No, it's not www. It's not. He's not saying that if you Google it, you'll find.
.gov.
No! There's a TV Trips page, there's a Tumblr, there's a Reddit page, and there's quite a bit on AO3. So there you go.
But yeah, thank you once again for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with people you think would be interested. Every share helps a ton.
Yeah, like, comment, subscribe, do the things that y'all should do, but like we all forget to do. So we say do them. Maybe you will do them.
Yeah.
Cowards, do it. Leave a comment. Say your opinion.
Even if it's negative, we can take it. We're tough. But yeah.
Make us cry. Do it. I challenge you. Tell us our parents are dead.
You won't make us cry, pussy.
Be Malfoy scorned.
But yeah, if you have any sort of, if we've offended you, if we're lovers scorned to you, feel free to leave a comment. But in the meantime, mischief managed.
Mischief managed.